I am live. I'm reading out of Lord of the Horizon. It is a far memory book by Joan Marshall Grant. She passed away in 1989, and she was a seer who wrote books about her own far memories, her own previous incarnations. She wrote 7 books on this, and this one, in this one, she is Ra-Ab, a male in ancient Egypt. It plays long before the flood. So it's really ancient Egypt. And we are now in the third part of this book, chapter 9, Amulet of Ra. The vizier, whom I had not seen since he came to the Oryx to tell me of the death of the Babylonian, came to Hotep Ra shortly before Senusert was to return to the royal city. I joined him at Royden's house, and during the first evening he spoke only of matters concerning general administration. Though he must have known that I had not seen Pharaoh for a long time, he preferred to assume that I was in constant communication with Amenemhet. I was anxious for an opportunity to find out whether he considered Senusert's estimate of the strength of his half-brother's following either too hopeful or too apprehensive, but only by circuitous means was I able to lead the conversation in this direction. I consider Prince Senusert to be an honest and amiable young man, said the vizier. I seldom have occasion to speak with him, but he is well liked in the palace, and he shares with the nobles of the court the pleasures in which Pharaoh no longer permits himself to indulge. Do you think that Amenemhet is unwise to become so much of a recluse? It is not for me to give an opinion of Pharaoh's conduct, but if he were an ordinary man and therefore open to criticism, I might say that he is foolish. Perhaps foolish is too strong a word, to withdraw himself completely from those who might be his personal friends. His judgments continue to be admirable. The laws of the watchers continue to be meticulously carried out by the officials. Yet sometimes I wonder if it is enough for a man only to be just and incorruptible. I once heard Royden say that a man who has forgotten he is a man cannot be a priest. You suggest that Pharaoh has forgotten his humanity? That is too direct a question for me to answer. Prince Senusert has not inherited his father's austerity. He has the faculty of treating others as equals without losing the dignity of his rank. But he is impulsive, and I think that if he had to choose between a plausible rogue and a cold man of upright heart, it is into the hand of the rogue he would give his seal. Though this warmth is in some ways an admirable quality, it might be disastrous in a pharaoh, I said. The vizier pretended to be surprised. Vizier, I'm not sure how you say it. Pharaoh? Why should Senusert become pharaoh? No one should know better than you and Royden that Prince Senusert is soon to be declared co-ruler with his father. Sometimes, my friend, truth and discretion cannot drink from the same cup. When one of these must thirst, it is the tongue of the discretion which must continue to know drought. He smiled, and the eyes under the full lids were no longer weary. The air of Hotep Ra opens the mouth of a man even so tortuous as myself. Forgive me for having taken you upon so long a journey when our destination was so close to both our hearts. He laughed. You see that even in my apology I try to conceal the honey of my meaning in the beehive of parable. Then he went on. As I told you when I last came to the Oryx, I hoped that after the death of the Babylonian, Amenemhet would no longer hold himself apart from his friends. I have tried by every means in my power to discover what has caused him to change, and had he ever failed to uphold our traditions, I would have considered it my duty to inform you and Royden. I may have been partly responsible for Prince Senusert and his mother going to live in the palace. I hoped that their influence might make Pharaoh remember his humanity. but he continues to behave as a man haunted by something I do not understand. He is kind and even indulgent to Senusert, but the boy is not close enough to his heart to be able to do what I hoped he might find possible. It is not altogether surprising that even the nobles, who have always been loyal to our cause, regret that the palace, which used to be the center of their lives, is now no more than a hall of audience. Senusert is their only link with the royal house. They think that if he ruled, their own lustre would again be increased. Are there not some of them who hope for more than lustre? I've already said that Senusert would never denounce a rogue who was his friend. They think, and perhaps not without cause, that he would be easily influenced, that he would be content if his wide avenues were lined with festival masks when he went on a progress, and would not pay very much heed to the narrow alleys, which once were, though beneath the dignity of the royal footstep. It is known that Senusert is being trained to follow his father, but not that he is in the Oryx. It is widely thought that he is in a temple, and many expect that when he takes up the croak and flare, further austerities will be imposed on the court. Will there be any open hostility when he is declared co-ruler? No. The respect in which Amenemhet is held is too strong for his decision to be questioned openly. Then what have we to fear? As soon as Senusert has had a chance to show his quality, surely he will be most thankfully acclaimed by those who look to the horizon, but not by those who think their own navel is the center of the universe. You have come to warn me against what? Let us have it in plain words. I warn you to keep Senusert well guarded. If he should die, Senusert would take his place, without bloodshed, without question. You think there will be an attempt to murder him? Murder can be subtle. As the royal heir, Senusert will lead the army into battle, and as a warrior does not always die by despair of a foreign enemy. Warn Senusert to be constantly on guard against his half-brother, not to take into battle men who are known to be partisans of Senusert, and to have as his cupbearer a man whom he can trust with his life. Urge him to choose a wife who will be accepted as the royal mother. An heir would be a strong shield against Senusert, but Senusert could appoint you and Royden to be the child's guardians. Then your suggestion is that it would be greatly to the interest of Egypt if Senusert is married before he returns to the royal city. After consulting Royden, I decided that the vizier's conversation must be reported in full to Senusert. But before doing so, I discussed it with Mary. Ra-Ab, she said, you must impress on Senusert that though he seems to be faced with the same problem as was his father, he must never marry for expediency. Even if the vizier is right, and by refusing to take a wife he would endanger Egypt, his position is not the same as was Amenemhet's. He can make a free choice, and it is only necessary that Royden and ourselves approve of the woman who will become the mother of his children. Of this, Pharaoh has sent me his personal assurance. How can Senusert remain loyal to the ideals of the eyes of Horus if we ask him to betray his own heart? Remember what you said to Chios. If it had not been for you, she might have been content with a marriage which would never have brought her the happiness she has found with Hanuk. Would a woman who really loved Senusert mind being a secondary wife? Ra-Ab, if you had married the daughter of the heir, I should have willingly become your concubine, but I think she would have been unhappy. Are we going to ask Senusert to deny himself the happiness which we have taught him to demand as his right? Is the boy we have trained so weak, a man, that he must shelter behind a child who is not yet conceived? You think I should conceal from him what the vizier has suggested? Senusert is a man, not a boy any longer. He must make his own decision, and we must provide him with all the facts from which to make it. We must not influence his choice, for it may alter the course of his life. Then Mary smiled and said, To you, my Ra-Ab, I'm always honest. and if he tries to marry a woman only because he thinks it is his duty, I shall use every means to make him change his mind." It was with great reluctance that I told Senusert what I had heard from the vizier. I gave him a clear and full account of our conversation, looking out of the window as I did so because I deeply feared to see his face cloud with sorrow. I turned to see that he was serene and his eyes joyous. "Ra-Ab, I knew by your voice that you hated to tell me all that. You feared that you were offering me the choice between duty and happiness. Yet, had you but known it, you brought me glorious news. I thought I should not be allowed to marry until I had become co-ruler, and that I should have great difficulty in persuading my father to let me take a royal wife who had not been selected by himself. Now you say that I can marry as soon as I like, and that my father will approve the marriage if both you and Royden give your consent. That consent I know you will give, for have you not always told me that true nobility is not born with the blood?" The relief his words brought me was so intense that for a moment I did not answer, lest I betray my emotion. "You have found the woman you love? Why did you not let Mary and me share in your happiness?" "Because I thought I should have great opposition from my father, and I did not wish to add this burden to the many you carry." "What is her rank?" "The most suitable of all for a pharaoh to marry. She is a priest." "Who is she? Does she belong to the Temple of the Horizon?" "No, she does not live in the Oryx." "How did you meet her?" "When, as a beggar, I was returning from the north, I had a cut on my foot which would not heal. I was very lame, and after crossing the northern boundary of the jackal, I stopped at a house to ask for shelter. Whether the poison spread or whether I had another fever, I am not sure, but I became very ill. I was afraid I should have to tell my real name to the people who were looking after me, and ask them to let Hanuk know I was within his boundaries. But they told me their daughter was initiate of Ptah in the temple which Hanuk built soon after he became nomarch, that she was coming to visit them and would arrive the following day. They had given me a room in the servants' quarters, but the woman and her husband both treated me as though I were their son. When I thanked them, they said, if we had done less, why should the gods remember us? For we would have proved ourselves traitors to their laws. They were very proud that their daughter was a healer priest. They told me that when she was a small child, she would hold a sick bird between her hands until its strength came back to its wings, and it could return to the air, of how she could take away fever and bring sleep even to those in great pain. As soon as I saw her, I knew that I should always bless the lameness which brought me to her house. And I bless it too, for with you I can now share joy instead of sorrow. We must go tell Mary, so that she can rejoice with us. She was even more deeply moved than I had been, and after she had embraced Senusert, she said, even when your wife is Pharaoh with you, I shall still think of her as my daughter. Together you will be winged, as they were winged who held the crook and flail when the temples of Egypt were as an avenue of torches. Senusert, you must go tomorrow to bring her to us. I am so eager to see her. We will begin the wedding preparations immediately and work so hard that it shall take place within 60 days. You will take the oath before Ptah at the horizon of Horus, and the jackal, the hare, and the oryx will share in the rejoicings. Senusert looked a little troubled. Mary, he said, I don't want to disappoint you, and if you think it's necessary, I shall of course agree to your plans, but need I have an important wedding? She laughed. Surely you have not become shy? Don't you want to let your people have the privilege of seeing your bride? It may sound foolish, but you know how I dread leaving the Oryx for the formality of the court. The years are going to hold for me so many festivals. So many times I shall have to be a figurehead at ceremonies. When I take the oath before Ptah, I want to be Senusert, who is your son, not Senusert, the heir of Amenemhet, not Senusert, the man who is so soon to become co-ruler. How well I understand, I said warmly. I remember how difficult it was to pretend that the elaborate preparations Mary made for our wedding were worth the hours we wasted apart from each other. If the choice had been mine, we should have never been separated for a moment, which we might have shared. Would you mind, Mary, he asked, if only you and Ra-Ab and of course her parents know of my secret, until I can declare her as my wife? Do you remember how, when I was a little boy, you told me that on the morning after you and Ra-Ab were married, you pretended that the clearing on the riverbank where your pavilion was set was a little island under the protection of Nut, and that you were going to live there forever? I should like Ptah and I to have such an island of quietness to remember, so that those few days may remain as an amulet made in the name of Ra, which at a word will always be able to change the formality of a royal banquet, or the monotonous ceremonial of the court, into a man and a woman alone by the river. That amulet will make two pharaohs forget that they can never be free of the responsibility of holding the crook and flail, and will allow them to remember that they hold a higher rank than the double crown, the rank of lovers. The time may come when, to lead my army, I must be parted from Ptah, but about the heavy rhythm of marching feet, I shall hear the quiet lapping of the water which greeted us when we woke together in the dawn. Even if we live to be very old, we shall only have to smile at each other to remember and to be young. So that was the end of chapter 9. Did I say today is Monday, the 15th of April? It is. 10th chapter is entitled Princess Ptah.